Every one of us has a story with our emotions. Mine began like many others as a child, watching the adults in my life handle their feelings in ways I didn't understand. I had no guidebook. No one taught me what emotions were for or how to process them. So I did what children do. I observed and imitated. I learned patterns that would shape my relationship with emotions for decades to come. My earliest memories of emotions were being told not to have them. Big boys don't cry, stop being so sensitive, man up. I quickly learned that negative emotions were unwelcome. They made adults uncomfortable. They made me too much, so I developed my first emotional habit: suppression. When I was 8, I watched my father deal with stress by shutting down completely. My uncle managed his by exploding in anger. My teacher insisted on constant positivity even during difficult times. Each time I encountered a difficult emotion, I applied these learned patterns. And with each application, the pattern grew stronger, like pathways in a forest, becoming well-worn trails over time. As I grew older, my emotions became more complex, but my tools for handling them remained childlike and primitive. I'd ignore my feelings until they couldn't be contained. I'd blame others for making me feel bad. I'd distract myself with video games, sports, or anything that would numb the discomfort. By early adulthood, these patterns had evolved into a full emotional ecosystem with 3 core beliefs. First, I developed a scarcity mindset around positive emotions. In the physical world, resources diminish when used. If you have $100 and spend $10, you have $90 left. I applied this same logic to happiness and joy, treating them as finite resources that must be hoarded. Second, I believed emotions needed to be controlled. I thought I could force myself to feel happy and avoid feeling sad. But emotions don't work that way. They arise as reactions to events, thoughts, and experiences. Third, I created defense mechanisms to avoid vulnerability. I built walls to protect myself from potential pain, not realizing these same walls were keeping me from genuine connection and growth. Then came the breaking point. My carefully managed emotional system collapsed under the weight of real life. A relationship ended. Work became overwhelming. Family tensions escalated. I was trying everything I knew, suppressing feelings, forcing positivity, distracting myself, but nothing worked. The more I fought against my emotions, the stronger they became. It was like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder I pushed, the more forcefully it would eventually resurface. I realized I had 2 choices: double down on control or learn a new way. My healing began with a fundamental shift in understanding what emotions actually are. Through therapy, books, meditation, research, and honest conversations, I learned that emotions aren't enemies to be conquered or problems to be solved. They're messengers carrying important information about my needs, boundaries, and values. I discovered that emotions evolved as survival tools. Fear alerts us to potential threats. Anger signals when boundaries have been crossed. Sadness helps us process loss and connect with others. Joy guides us toward what fulfills us. I realized something profound. I had created a shadow version of myself, the emotional, vulnerable, weak part, and I had been attacking this creation for years. What I didn't understand was that whatever pain I inflicted on this shadow self, I felt too. I had to unlearn the scarcity mindset I applied to emotions. Unlike physical resources, internal resources grow with use. The more I exercise my muscles, the stronger they become. The more I use my intelligence, the sharper it gets. Emotional capacity works the same way. The more I practice experiencing my full range of emotions, the greater my capacity becomes. I also learned that emotions arise as reactions. We receive good news and then feel joy. We face a threat and then feel fear or anger. When I tried to create emotions before events, forcing myself to feel happy, I was actually acting from fear of not controlling my emotional state, and ironically, that fear became the very emotion I experienced instead of the happiness I was trying to force. A key insight was understanding that we can only be reactive to emotions, not proactive about them. I couldn't predict or control what I would feel next. When I tried saying, "I won't feel anxious tomorrow," I was setting myself up for failure. However, what I could be proactive about was creating conditions that foster positive emotions. Instead of saying I won't feel sad, I could say I'll create moments of joy today by calling a friend, taking a walk in nature, or engaging in a hobby I love. With these new understandings, I began developing healthier ways to relate to my emotions. Face emotions without fear. I learned to notice emotions without labeling them as good or bad. I would simply say, "I'm feeling anxious right now," not "I shouldn't be anxious." For example, before an important presentation, instead of trying to suppress my anxiety, I'd acknowledge it. I notice I'm feeling anxious right now. My heart is racing, and my thoughts are moving quickly. Just naming it often reduced its intensity. I also learned to trust myself and not worry about how I would feel tomorrow. Instead of thinking, "What if I'm too anxious to give the presentation?" I'd tell myself, "Whatever I feel tomorrow, I trust that I can handle it." This simple shift, trusting myself to handle future emotions, went a long way in reducing my present anxiety about future states. I began asking, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What need or value is it highlighting? When a friend cancelled plans for the third time, I felt anger rising. Instead of dismissing it or exploding, I listened to it. My anger was telling me I valued reliability and felt disrespected. This allowed me to have an honest conversation instead of silently fuming or pretending everything was fine. I found healthy ways to express emotions rather than bottling them up until they exploded. Sometimes I'd write in my journal to process disappointment. Other times I'd have a vulnerable conversation with someone I trusted. After a frustrating day, I might go for a run to channel the energy of anger. I found that creative outlets like music or art could transform complex feelings into something meaningful. Embrace negative emotions as necessary. I recognize that without darkness, we can't truly appreciate light. Negative emotions give positive ones more meaning and depth. When a meaningful relationship ended, I allowed myself to feel the sadness fully instead of rushing to get over it. That grief taught me how deeply I could connect with others and ultimately made future joy more vibrant. I realized sadness wasn't my enemy. It was teaching me about what matters. I observed how I treated others and realized it mirrored how I treated myself. I noticed a pattern. When I treated someone else harshly for a certain behavior, I would unconsciously treat myself with the same harshness when I exhibited similar behavior. I was defending a belief about how people who act that way should be treated. What I didn't realize was that this belief system applied to me too. Breaking this cycle meant examining my judgments of others and asking, is this how I want to treat myself? Slow down the reaction. In our fast-paced world, I'd felt pressured to react immediately to everything. When I received a critical email that instantly made my blood boil, I no longer fired back an immediate response. Instead, I'd step away from my desk, take deep breaths, and return when the initial emotional wave had passed. This simple pause created space between stimulus and response, allowing me to choose my reaction rather than being ruled by it. When certain events triggered intense emotional reactions, I tried to trace them back to their origins. After making a minor error at work, I felt crushing shame far beyond what the situation warranted. By exploring this reaction, I traced it back to my third-grade teacher who had humiliated me in front of the class for a small mistake. Understanding this connection helped me respond to the present situation appropriately, without the amplification of old wounds. I learned to face my fears head-on, no negotiations, no second-guessing, no clever workarounds. When I felt anxious about speaking up in meetings, I'd previously created elaborate strategies to participate without being noticed. These workarounds only reinforced my fear. Instead, I began deliberately raising my hand to speak, feeling the fear fully while doing exactly what scared me. This doesn't mean recklessly putting yourself in dangerous situations. Rather, it's about confronting the emotional fear itself, which often provides the mental clarity to assess any actual danger. In most cases, I discovered the danger existed only in my mind, and facing the fear was all that was needed. My relationship with emotions isn't perfect now. I still have moments of falling into old patterns. The difference is that I now recognize when it's happening. I've learned that emotions are like weather, constantly changing and all necessary for a balanced ecosystem. I don't have to like every emotion I experience, but acknowledging them all is the path to emotional freedom. Just as our bodies are designed to heal physical wounds, our minds are designed to process emotional ones. Emotions are the vehicles that carry messages about what we need to heal. Your story with emotions is unique, but the principles of healing are universal. When you stop fighting your emotions and start listening to them, you'll discover they've been trying to guide you toward healing all along. Remember, it's never too late to change the patterns you learned as a child. Even after decades of toxic emotional habits, you can develop new pathways. Be kind to yourself along the way. After all, you're unlearning habits that took a lifetime to build. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe and share with someone who might need this message. Until next time, be kind to yourself, all parts of yourself.